Hi, this is Gina Wagers, and for Module 10, we're discussing helping students realize their learning norms. The first learning norm is relationships. Indicators of this norm would be understanding who students are as individual people, and also the ability to help them build social emotional skills to develop meaningful relationships with others in their school community and then outside of that community as well. So how do we establish this norm? Well, I think ensuring that each student has at least one trusted adult in the building is a really essential part of helping them to develop healthy, trusting relationships within the school setting. I know in my building we have advisory time where we meet daily with a small group of students that we have that connection and relationship with so that we can problem solve, help them with academics, things like that. In addition, I think creating opportunities to engage with students outside of content learning is super important. Whether you're sponsoring a club or coaching a sport, letting students know that you value their interests outside of the classroom and academics as well is super important. The next learning norm is relevance. Indicators of this norm would be connecting student learning to specific student interests and connecting learning to real world opportunities. So how do we establish this norm? A really simple way of doing this is giving students a survey, finding out what their interests are, finding out what they want to learn about, attending professional development and staying in the know about your curriculum and updates to your curriculum. I find this is especially true and relevant for English language arts. There's constantly new topics, new authors, things that can be added in as supplements to what we're currently doing that really help connect students with things that they want to know and learn more about. And then finally, connecting with the community to create learning opportunities outside of the classroom for students, whether that's visiting a local place in town, connecting with a business or a business owner, giving students those opportunities to see the connection between the classroom and the world outside of the classroom. The next norm is time. Indicators of this would be the pace of learning. It should reflect individual student needs, and then learning tasks should be measured not by the quality necessarily, by the quality and not necessarily by the quantity, right? We're not so much focusing on how much work can we get done and submitted, but are we truly mastering skills? Are we demonstrating that we have mastery of whatever content we're looking at? So how do we establish this norm? I think teaching students self-advocacy skills is super important. That way they understand what their own needs are and they know how to communicate what they need from their teachers. Also seeking student input when it comes to learning tasks and demonstration of skill. I think this is kind of ties in with choice as well, but giving students the opportunity to demonstrate how they know what they know rather than just traditional rote assignments. The next norm is timing. Indicators of this norm would be that the sequence of learning reflects those individual student needs. So how do we establish this norm? I think engaging teachers in conversations across grade levels and buildings is super important, especially when you're for bigger transitions between elementary and middle school and then middle school and high school, getting to know those students and what their needs actually are, how they've typically performed, and then just communicating with other teachers so that you can have a plan established for how you're going to sequence and address student needs. I think also teaching students academic vocabulary and how to progress monitor based on the skills that they feel like they should be learning is super important too. And I think that kind of ties back in with those self-advocacy skills so that students themselves have ownership over that process as well. The next norm is play. Indicators of this norm would be learning that emphasizes the process of discovery rather than putting pressure on students just to perform certain tasks or certain skills. So how do we establish this norm? Well, I think creating incentives with student input is super important, right? Knowing what motivates your students and what they want to work towards, what their goals are, helps make the learning more of a process and a journey that is fun and enjoyable for them. I also think it's important to create opportunities to celebrate student progress other than traditional award nights. So again, kind of thinking about incentives and ways that you can recognize progress, not just reaching a final goal. The next norm is practice. Indicators of this norm include opportunity for students to apply their skills in multiple ways or across multiple settings. So a really good way to establish this norm is to connect with other teachers to provide cross-curricular learning opportunities so that students can see those hands-on ways that learning translates from one content to another, the ways that learning certain skills or strategies can help them in multiple settings. The next norm is choice. Indicators of this norm would be options and variety in student learning. And how do we establish this? I think engaging students in setting learning goals, helping them understand what it is that they want to achieve, and connecting that with the curriculum is important. I also think it's essential to practice flexibility here, understanding that learning looks different for every student. The next norm is authenticity. Indicators of this norm would be learning is being judged more by its value in the real world setting. It's not necessarily about a letter grade or a score on a test or an assessment. So how do we establish this norm? I think creating extended learning opportunities outside of the school day or the school year is very important. I know I'm fortunate to work in a building where we offer a summer enrichment program over the summer, where it's not necessarily seen as like a punishment for missing out on learning during the school year, but it's an enrichment opportunity. It's extended learning. It's an opportunity to go beyond what happens in the classroom and really engage with learning in a different way over the summer. I think especially at the secondary level, especially high school, thinking about ways that you can offer internships or job shadowing is a super important way to get students connecting with real world settings as well. The next learning norm is challenge. Indicators of this norm, students understand that they are working on meeting high and meaningful standards. And so how do we establish this norm? I think encouraging students to take ownership of their learning and then also to explain their learning to others. And I know a lot of schools are shifting more towards these models of student-led parent-teacher conferences, but I think those are great opportunities for students to really have ownership over what it is that they're doing daily in that school setting, and then being able to talk about it and discuss it in a way that they're proud of, that they can highlight some of those things that they are working on is really great. The next norm is application. Indicators of this norm, opportunities for students to interact with community and professionals outside of their school setting. So how do we establish this? I think creating opportunities for learning that connect with real world experience, whether that's traditional, field trips or internships, creating some kind of network within the community that the school is in so that learning is not just limited to the lessons from a textbook, but that students can take those skills and then apply them in different settings outside of the classroom and see the value outside of the school setting is very important. Helping students to achieve their learning norms is an essential part of Standard 2. In order for students to be able to engage in the learning happening within the walls of the school, they must feel a sense of belonging within the school community. So building trust and transparency regarding learning norms is a really essential part of collaborating with students in order to create that environment. Not only should students be offered a voice in reflecting on the learning norms of the school, but they should also be encouraged to cultivate those skills so that they're modeling the norms and it becomes part of their lifelong learning. This assignment is relevant to my current learning because it has given me a better understanding of the ways in which student learning norms are developed. And usually that's as a direct result of administration and staff's implementation of the vision and mission statement and their communication of their expectations. This assignment is also relevant to my current learning because it has helped provide me with insight on ways in which student engagement in the creation of learning norms can positively impact overall student efficacy and learning. This assignment will influence the decisions that I make as a future school leader because I now have more knowledge about strategies that can be implemented in order to help staff engage students in contributing to those positive learning norms.